Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Better Bittner Business Brat Chat podcast. And I kind of want to do a retake on that, but we're going to keep going ahead anyway. We talk about the impact of military service on the family unit and on the individual before, during, after all points of involvement with the U.S. military. And today we are here with Mr. Jim McDermott. You would like to share a little bit about yourself, sir, just to get us started here?
So a little bit of a backstory and a little bit of an introduction to Jim. So I actually had the privilege of working with Jim in the Boots to Business program for the Veterans Business Outreach Center and the Small Business Administration. Jim was actually one of our facilitators up in Alaska. So we got to do a lot of great work up there with a company called Business Impact Northwest. But Jim is an amazing mentor. He is an amazing teacher. He's amazing, not a coach, but he's an author. He also is a veteran, has a lot of military service behind his back. And so, Jim, I guess to get started today, tell us a little bit about yourself, your life, what service means to you, and just kind of how and where you ended up.
Yeah, well, it's a
It's a
long story
mouthful.
now at this point in my life. I'm getting so much longer in the tooth. But my resume, just, to quickly do a synopsis is, I was, 18 and a month when I joined the United States Air Force. And of course, everywhere from Guam to Andrews Air Force Base to, the 7th Corps in Germany, being stationed with them as the part of the Air Support Operations Center. And of course, we would bring in the air to ground coverage for our ground troops. And so I did that and enjoyed the heck out of it. And then back to the States and ended up in Alaska, of all places. And I really loved it. It was like being sent to live inside of a postcard. It's just beautiful. So I just enjoy it. I lived in the Anchorage area for about 15 years, and now I've been up here in Fairbanks for a little over 20 years, and just enjoyed it. I was telling Amber before we started the broadcast, I took my dog out for a walk this morning at 40 below. So I'd like to think that it's that military toughness. It's just like, I think my dog might be a little bit tougher than me, Charlie. But anyways, I still, that background doesn't hurt. In between all those years, when I left the Air Force, I was a foreman for the Anchorage School District for their logistics side, and went on and did some adjunct work in at one of the universities online, the University of Phoenix, and actually a college, and then ended up working for Wayland Baptist University, and then eventually up here in Fairbanks. I worked for about 8, 9 years up at the University of Alaska Fairbanks as a term instructor, business term instructor. So the military, one of the great benefits of the military is getting that education and getting it, paid for. So I took advantage of that, and it paid off quite handy. And of course, I did the Boots to Business, which to me is like teaching too. You're doing all those workshops. Gosh, everything from finance and management questions. You have to be pretty on top of your game to be able to do a good job and to serve our military community that are looking into entrepreneurship and to do it well. It's one of my favorite jobs, actually. I really had a lot of fun doing that and doing. I did a lot of work up in Fort Wainwright here in Fairbanks, and also up at the Eielson Air Force Base, a little bit further north, if you can go any further north. But anyway, it's just a little bit further north, about 25 miles from here. So this quick synopsis. That's me. I started to do the writing. One of my last books that I put together is called Little Brian, the military brat's best Christmas ever, and it's based on a true story. Even though there is some fiction included, but based on a true story, because that just makes writing the fiction that much easier to do when you can actually go back and recount situations. And it was a book that I put together, and it was just a pure joy to put together. It's just my son Brian, when I told him that of course he's an adult now, and I told him that I was putting together this book, and he goes, "Did you tell the story about the Arkansas Christmas Dad?" And I said, "I sure did, Brian. That's kind of in the title too." So that's just a real quick overview. That's who I am and where I'm at right now in life. I'm doing the writing.
So when you were 18, what was your inspiration to join the service? What was that catalyst decision that made you say, "Hey, this is for me. I'm going to join the service"?
Good question. I had an uncle who was a Marine that fought at Iwo Jima. I had a dad that was in the Air Force during its early years of breaking away from the United States Army and becoming its own service, so I had the history in the family of individuals that had been in the military, and that's not an uncommon trait. My son James went into the Army also when he had his chance. So it was like I'm an adult now at 18. When we're 18, that's how we look at ourselves. I was like, I'm ready to take on the world, and I just couldn't wait to get out of the house and be, as I thought back in those days, free, 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 free. I just love that thought process, being independent. And then I realized in basic training I had even less independence than ever before. That was quite the wake up call.
Yeah, a little bit.
20 years ago is when I left Fairbanks and moved back to Texas. Actually, yeah,
Yeah.
I was.
Deb
you
lived in
understand.
Fairbanks for a while.
Oh yeah, I live in Canada now, and I was at the grocery store, and they were like, "So is it cold enough for you?" Because they know I'm from Texas, and I was like, "Yeah, I've lived further north than you have."
Amen. That's what I used to tell the folks that I'm originally from New England, and they would be like, "Wow, you're way up there by Canada." I said, "Well, actually, we look down on Canada, not negatively, but we look down on Canada because it's further south." They're like, "Dang, you're up there."
I don't know what I start thinking about Alaska. I start thinking about Tina Fey when she was mocking Sarah Palin on
Oh,
SNL, and she just looked and she's just like, "I can see Russia from my house." Like that's the only thing I think of. And
yeah, they picked on that poor girl. They were unmerciful. They really were. When I say they, the media was really
oh yeah,
unmerciful with. But I met Sarah several times before, even before she was governor, when she was first running, and we'd meet her, and it's like, hey, Sarah, it's on the street. Everybody's first,
yeah,
it's on first name basis. It's not as formal as it is in many places in the lower 48. So it was always Sarah, hello, Sarah, and introducing my grandkid to her, my grandchild Helona, and she was just so down to earth, but
yeah.
maybe too down to earth, and I'm not sure they were ready for that in the lower 48. Yeah, not to pick on the lower 48, but I just don't think they were ready for it yet because, we are I guess for lack of a better way of putting it, we do live a pretty rustic life, and we kind of
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, I always tell people when I lived out in the cabin about 20 miles outside of Fairbanks, when I wasn't at school, by the time I got done doing everything I needed to do to live for another day or two, it felt like I was getting off an 8-hour shift of work. And people were like, "Well, why did you do it?" And it was like, "Well, I made the just amazingly well thought out decision to separate from my wife at the time and have no plan on where to stay. So I stayed at my friend's cabin sat for him while I sorted everything out to move back home. But yeah, and
The dry cabin.
yeah,
Oh my God,
it was dry cabin.
I bore my friend.
Yeah, no running water. We had electricity and we had a gas heater. And
Okay.
actually, I woke up one morning and it was really cold. I'm like, man, ugh. So I went to go like just roll back over and go back to sleep, and I was like, no, 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 no. Like I was like, I need to get up and find out why it's so cold in here. And I'm lucky I did because there was a big drum full of diesel that was hooked up to the heater, and the copper piping had gotten so cold that it snapped in on itself.
Oh,
And so I had to take the whole copper tube out and go take it to some place that was warm. Okay. Which luckily there's, the garage from my neighbor's house was about a quarter mile away from where I was. So I ran over there with some needle nose, got the piping cut, after it had warmed back up, and then kind of belled it out inside of some kind of funneled screw cap thing that just happened to fit on my oil drum. And that was how I got through that week.
yeah, yeah. Ingenuity is the key to survival, no doubt. And good on you. You did well.
Yeah, I mean, I can't take all the credit though. Like my buddy Joe, I called him. Luckily, I had cell service out there at the time. Well, okay, I had to hold the phone at like the perfect angle, like from the little loft in the cabin to get a
Right.
signal out. But called him and he was like, He was like, "Well, there's this thing that fits on the screw cap for the." He's like, "Do you know how to bell out, copper line?" And I'm like, "Well, the name would imply that you make it look like the shape of a bell, so I'm assuming I'm going to be like." Oh
Okay, yeah,
man.
that's outstanding. And that's the thing too with Fairbankians. I can't, speak for all of Alaska, but I can talk about Fairbanks for the last 20 years. My sister-in-law came up here from Vancouver, Washington for Thanksgiving. She'd never been to Fairbanks before. And she went out to Dachina Hot Springs, which is a very big tourist place where you can get in the water at 30 below, and it's a hot spring, and they really enjoy it. And she was like, "These are some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life." So I said, "Well, that's a nice compliment. It's a good place. People help each other, and I enjoy it here." But now I want you to think about our paratroopers up on Fort Wainwright, and they're doing their military exercises, and at 35, 40 below zero. These are some tough men and women. Let me
Oh
tell
yeah.
you, that's in my Air Force days, I would have said, "Hey, can we wait a couple months?" I would have tried anyway. So, but it's like, dang, it's cold. Germany would be cold in November and December, but not Fairbankian cold. Holy cow, it's a whole new cold.
Yeah, I mean, like the one thing about where I'm in Lethbridge, Alberta right now, and the one
Okay.
th yeah, it's a beautiful place. I mean, I love it here, okay, 'cause here's the upside to crazy amounts of gun control, okay? And I will caution anybody who wants to come visit Lethbridge, if you're a deer hunter, you're gonna need, like, a sedative or something because they're not afraid of people anymore, they just walk through the suburbs, and I can't believe what I'm seeing out there, so I've seen that, rabbits, skunks, like, all kinds of stuff just out in the neighborhood, and, like, I actually asked my roommate's kid, I was like, how close can I get to them? Because 'Cause they're, like, on in the middle of the sidewalk, and they're like, "Oh, if they get scared, they'll just run away," and I'm like, "Okay, that's different because in Texas, they will probably try to kick you to death." Because 'cause they're used to people trying to get venison jerky out of them.
Right.
I don't know. I'm coming from Georgia. And see, that's the one thing I think that you learn in moving around as much as you move around about different cultures and different things. Alaska, it's kind of set apart. You have a whole nother country that separates the state, kind of from the other states. So you guys are contained kind of to yourselves. I like to think of Alaska almost like the Japan of the United States. Not as far as, like, tech or things like that, but as far as, if you've ever learned about Japanese, like, feudalism, they isolated, you know, that sort of thing. But, my family, we come, Geechee, South Carolina, Creole, Louisiana, those sorts of places. And it's a different type of mentality when you grow up and you don't I'm not gonna say you don't have a lot, but when you're contained in a community, you learn to rely on your community, right? It takes a village to raise a child. That's something that you're not seeing as much as people isolate in cities and things like that. Well, no, we have to keep our children behind closed doors, safety, things like that. But when you go to places like Alaska, when you go to places sometimes in the South or even, up where Jesse is, because of those close-knit communities, it's definitely a different mentality. Absolutely.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed.
No, that
Yeah, my ex-father-in-law, he did carpentry work and did that, in exchange for food supplies, I mean, basically, it was like
Yep.
bartered labor,
yeah.
That's and he would one of the other things he would do is he would plow the entire because they were way out there, they were like 30, 40 miles outside of Fairbanks, and you needed snow chains just to get up over the ridge to get into their little community, and he had to well, he didn't have to, but he did. He plowed out the entire roadway with his truck. He had the plow fitted on his huge truck, and, like, they actually didn't have their electrical setup was bare bones, so he actually couldn't I forget what he was using. I think it was some kinda gas heating thing that he would use that would, like, basically dump hot air underneath the front end of his truck so he'd be able to start it. But, yeah,
I
it's
had that. I was going to say I had that a lot with my small business owners when I was a counselor with small business.
Mm,
Another hat I wore was the director of small business development up here in Fairbanks. And
yep.
I used to tell them, "Hey, we do a lot of bartering. But I will tell you, just to protect yourself, so you have that knowledge, Fairbanks bartering is as common as the day is long, but the IRS considers it revenue. Yeah, I mean, they want you to give it a market value and then report it. They go, "Well, I'm not doing that." I said, "Well, don't tell me that." But I'm just letting you know, as your a mentor and counselor, I have to let you know that the IRS has those expectations. And if you listen to the IRS, I should get a pat on the back for that.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. No, when you're a CPA, you definitely have to watch things like that. And I think one of the things as a small business counselor, what I would honestly see where a lot of people would mess up in their taxes, they would put their logos or their advertisements on their personal vehicles, which you absolutely 100% can do. And if you're driving around the town, yes, you can claim that mileage because you're marketing for your business. But if you're going to a trip in Florida and you haven't earned any revenue in Florida, it makes absolutely no sense for you to claim that mileage. And the IRS, they do go back and they check the little things like that. And so it's like, are you really doing this right? Like, nah,
And I used to
you're
tell
making me squeamish.
I used to tell my students on my introduction to business class, I said the three most feared letters in business are, and they would all have all these crazy guesses, but I would come back with the IRS. And everybody get a chuckle. And if the IRS is listening, not that I'm paranoid or anything, good job, guys and gals. All right, I get that out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
now my ex's stepdad, he what he would do is whenever he had to do work for a business in town doing carpentry work. I think if you ever been to Ichiban Noodle, he did some of the counter work in there. Yeah, I don't even know if that business is still open, but because it's been 2 decades. But he did carpentry work there, and he would just basically take that money, itemize everything else he got bartered, and then take the money that was on record and just toss it at the IRS and get back whatever they determined that he overpaid on. So
Very good.
I don't know. I just determined after my good, fourth year of doing taxes with a local tax firm, because I used to work long, long time ago in another life. It almost seems now, but one of my first jobs I put together, or I helped to put together profit sharing plans, qualified plans for large businesses along the Gulf Coast with a CPA firm. And after like my third or fourth good tax accounting season, I decided after looking at the cubicle walls, this wasn't for me for the rest of my life. I decided I didn't want to do accounting anymore, quit my job, pretty much changed my major on the same day. Now, given I was working 2 full-time jobs, so it's not like I quit
Dang.
without a backup plan. But, oh, I had one client, they just yelled at me and they said just the right thing. And it's just that one time when you get that moment of clarity, when something just kinda snaps for a minute, it's like, I don't have to do this for the rest of my life, and I don't think
Amen.
I'm going to. And so you
Amen.
just
That's why I used to also tell my students, find that passion, something you love to do, and then you'll never work a day in your life because you just love doing it. So yeah, I can relate. I mean, I did some jobs too in my early years because you're just trying to survive. But boy, getting to that point where you get experience, you get a little education, it really can help you open doors for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And accounting is always a good skill. If you don't know like what you want to do when you grow up, accounting is boring. It is, unless you really like numbers. Numbers don't lie. The thing is, people always need accountants. So there's something with job security there. And, you know, you get business knowledge. So as a business owner, if you ever want to own or run or operate your own thing, you're going to have to learn how to like read a P&L, or you're going to have to learn how to read your balance sheet or compose those things, or your cash flow for that matter.
No,
So,
cash flow is it's one area that I used to put in. I would tell
yeah.
my students, if you put in your feasibility study as your final, your final project, and I can
Oh yeah.
look at it and see that your cash flow is lying
Mhm.
or you made up numbers, I'm giving you an F. because you're not going to be in business very long if you don't have a positive cash flow figured out. And
Exactly.
if you don't, be honest with me and go, Mr. McDermott, this won't work. All the work I put into this, it won't work. I'll give you an A for being honest and doing the work to figure out on paper, where it's better to figure it out then than to figure it out in life. So yeah, I agree with you. Especially you can see you hit a real soft spot with me when it comes to cash flow. I find it
Yeah.
to be vital for the micro entrepreneur to understand cash flow, really understand it well.
Oh, yeah, trust me, if you've ever worked with any of my clients that I might still have lingering up in the Alaska area, they will tell you how hard I hit the financial feasibility with all of them.
Oh, amen. That's the way to go.
Absolutely, absolutely. But no. So I mean, being a military brat and things like that, what were some of the places or what were some of your fondest memories growing up in the military community that you remember from your time?
Well, most of my role was that as the parent of the military branch because
Yeah.
when my dad was in the Air Force, I was only 9 months old when he got out, so I didn't really have
Okay.
that real experience of being a military brat and going through it. But
Yeah.
as I explained in my book, it's military brat isn't a insult. It's a sign of an endearing love, a membership within a special group of kids that they have. I'll give you one example. It's I didn't even put it in this book. One example is I was stationed in Arkansas, and I was in the billets, the military hotel, and I'm in the billets, and it's my little son James. He was going to be going to a new school. He went to three schools in two different states in two different countries in 1 year. So, anyways,
Wow.
I'm taking him to somewhere in that collage of different schools. I'm taking him over, and he's just a little tyke, 6, 7 years old, and he's holding Dad's hand, and we're walking out the front gate of the base, and right across the street was the little school called Gosnell. It was in Arkansas, and I'm taking him in there. I'm like, boy, this poor kid, it must be so tough. But the teacher was a DOD school. The teacher, as soon as we get in there, she's like, "Oh, everyone, this is little Jimmy," and she introduces him to the class, and she goes, "We have it from here, Mr. McDermott," and she takes James's hand. And of course, Jimmy was the name at the time. That's what we called him. About 2 or 3 months later, he came home that day. He was just as happy as could be. I couldn't believe how much he loved the teacher and how that teacher made a huge difference to that little kid. But he came home one day and he goes, "Dad, I think from now on," and he said, "Mom, too." He goes, I'd like to be called James from now on. My teacher calls me James, and I really like being called James." And that's his birth name, of course. And we're like, okay, well, we'll go with that if you makes you happy. So we had to switch gears a little bit, but it was a life that I saw for my kids that it could be tough, but at the same time it could be wonderful. The toughness could be changed from losing friends and going to a new place and have to make friends again. That can be as Maslow's belonging needs are identified, that can be a need that's really, really, if it's not nurtured, it could really, really set the kids back a little bit. So you have to really
Mhm.
try your best. And, the community involvement. I always loved the military base. They would have community events that would be taking place. So my kids would be at the T-ball. They would be doing all types, swimming, all types of things with other military kids. It didn't take them long where they were just feeling at home from one post or one base because I got to be with the Army and with the Air Force on a couple of different occasions. So it was, and at Andrews Air Force Base, people used to go, "What did you do to get stationed at the Seventh Corps and in the middle of Germany, going out with the Army every time they go out to the field? You went out to the field." And I was at Andrews for 6.5 years for First Helicopter Squad. And they go, "You must have really made someone upset." I was like, "I don't know. This isn't all that bad. It's kind of a fun and it was fun for me because I went from, the kind of the red carpet place to a place there was no red carpet. It was, not even understood to exist. It was much, much more bare bones type of military experience. But I enjoyed that too because it was all what I signed up for.
I am. So what was the favorite place you ever went to, or where was the favorite place you ever ended up,
Gosh,
other
I
than
mean,
where you're at right now?
yeah, I'm gonna
Because
say Alaska. It was a big hit because
yeah,
we got to settle in Alaska. It was like, okay, this is where you're gonna finish your time. in the schools that you're in, graduates. I just thought that was great for the kids because they're moving around so much. But of all the places, God, that's a tough question. I think it was Germany because we got to go to so many different places. Wiesbaden, oh God, I can remember half the names there. I remember one game Z. That's all I can remember. But I was at all these different places, and I would go to visit, and then we'd go up to the Netherlands and play softball. I played a lot of softball too, so we could travel together and just have a lot of fun, and just go to all these different places in Europe, and of course we'd be the only Air Force unit playing in all these army posts, so it was like they were all playing the United States Air Force, not just one squadron, a small squadron. They were acting like they were getting ready to beat up on the whole USAF, and so it would always be pretty intense games. We were good, but we had to be good because they came to kick our tails. So it was always fun to play around Europe and do that. So I think that's where I had the most fun. I also played table tennis quite a bit, and what I love in Germany, you go to their parks. They have cement table tennis things set up, and
Yep.
I ended up being rated number 4 for the United States team, which was Army, all of the services. I ended up being rated number 4, so I was able to be in the Armed Forces Olympics on the table tennis team. That was fun. So I had so many and food and beer.
Oh yeah.
Oh my! I took my kids to a McDonald's on a Saturday in Ludwigsburg. Took them to
Uh-huh.
a McDonald's, and I'm like, I'm doing the German counting, and pommes frites, and then I'm ordering the burger. When I get done, she goes, "Will that be anything else?" I'm like, "Dang you!" She understood English, and I'm trying to do it in German. But then I looked up the menu, and I said, "You serve beer at McDonald's?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I'll have a cold beer since I'm here with the kids, and so we live really close to the center of Ludwigsburg, so it was just a short walk, about maybe a couple miles. So the kids loved it, nice days. And my wife's like, boy, you're a good dad taking the kids out every Saturday to McDonald's. I go, see? Never told her about the beer. So I said, see? You just didn't know what I had in me, my potential. So it worked out great for me and the kids.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, I think it depends on where you go over there, what you end up developing a taste for, I guess, the most. Because if you like in the Rhine and Mosel area, that's like the huge wine area
Mm,
where you have, all of like the wines. But then if you go to like Bavaria, you have all of like the Dunkelweizen. And, oh my goodness, Dunkelweizen. That's your dark wheat beer. Okay. It
right.
is a step off from Guinness, but it is sweet. Yeah, it is just the
That's the
best.
key. The sweetness is just incredible.
Yes.
And I felt it was my duty as a good Irish American to make sure I tasted every brew that was available. And I lived in a small town called Monheim, and
Okay.
Monheim had at Christmas time, that's the only time that they did their microbrew was at Christmas time. Oh, you talk about it was the beer was as black could be. It was so sweet, went down so easy. Oh, it
Oh,
was dangerous.
man.
It was a dangerous beer to
Oh,
drink.
yeah.
It tasted great, and it was a little bit more potent than some of the American beers.
Oh, yeah, I think they were at, like, 13.5% or something like that. Yet they
And
were
some of their
ridiculously
micros, yes.
rated. In the
Yeah.
United States, they're like 7.5, but you see the Germans, they actually have a name. So our Budweiser and things, they like to call it Arswasser. I will not actually say what that translates into. Just
First thing I did is I learned all the swear words. Yes, I made sure
there.
I was fluent there.
So, to me, and that's the one thing, and so I haven't been able to really find, like, a good American beer that I really like. Now I did for a while. I drank Miller High Life before I just stopped drinking altogether, but I did like Miller High Life for a while. But once you've had German beer or actual Guinness, it's like, nah, just, nothing's gonna compare.
Yeah,
So
I know. About the closest thing I can find is the Canadian couple of Canadian beers I like, and then Heineken doesn't do too bad of a job, even though it's kind of watered down from what I was drinking when I was in the Netherlands. But still,
when
it's still pretty good.
when we were all in Seattle, Kat actually got me turned on to the Irish Death. Do you remember
Oh,
how yeah, the
oh,
Irish Death was pretty good.
uh,
The name was interesting enough. But
So you can see, as a parent of the military brat, I might have been a little bit selfish and sometimes and indulged in myself a little bit more than I should have. But I really had a great time. But my kids loved it too. Did you
yeah,
ever have the Pomfrets? We didn't have the ice cream truck. We had the Pomfrets truck that would come into the neighborhood, and the
that's
little bells
amazing.
would be going. And I remember the first time going down there thinking I was getting ice cream for the kids, and it was French fries. Pomfrets. And so I'm like, well, let me get 5 orders of Pomfrets, please, for all of us. So it was just a whole different, beer would be delivered to the front door.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, my gosh, I'm just digging this place. I used to tell my wife, I said, if we ever did leave the United States, Germany would be a place that wouldn't be too hard to settle in, because it
Oh
was
yeah.
just a nice. We had such a nice time there. We just enjoyed it so much. But I loved their Polizei too. Their Polizei was so tough. But they used
Oh
to have these
yeah.
Oh
long
man.
green trench coats and things like that. They looked so sharp. They were just such a sharp looking group, but you didn't play with them. You don't play with the poles.
Well, the thing that I loved about German Polizei, and this was actually one thing that I studied independently, just because I study weird things. You've met me, Jim. You already know I'm a weirdo. Okay,
No, I
but
never thought of you that way, but go ahead.
I study a little bit of everything. But I was actually studying military and police movements, and the one thing about it is if you actually look at like how units move, how the German Polizei move whenever they go to apprehend like suspects or anything else. It's in a very square type formation. And with that square, what they end up doing is they'll start in four corners of a square and then they center in the middle to where you can't actually like they know, right? So they always get whoever their suspect is, but half of what their tactics are too, some of them are very psychological in the fact that if you look at, like, for instance, the German police escort vans, they're green and they have like the little windows, if they have a window at all. They're not a bus. Like you can't it's like once you get locked up, you know you're locked up, like, uh-oh. Like,
Yeah.
no, you don't play with the German Polizei, not at all.
No, they they
For
they
those
were a
reasons.
tough group.
Oh,
I
yeah.
and they drive Porsches too. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I see them flying on the highway, on the autobahn, and then I'd just be like, dang, that guy's going to be doing about 150, 160 miles per hour. He had to be, because I'm doing 100 miles per hour, because I had a BMW, and I had a 30-mile drive to Stuttgart, where the Seventh Corps was located. I lived in Montagne, so I lived a little ways out. But when you can drive 100 miles an hour, and that's considered just an average speed, boy, it's just, you get to work pretty quick.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
and by the way, can confirm you don't mess with the Polizei. Shout outs to Nick Wade and to Philip Schmuck, that amazing night where we got caught without our Ausweis on us. So
That's funny.
yeah, we were out. It was like 3 a.m. and Phil was like dancing around a stop sign, like just kind of swinging around. And I saw the Polizei coming up the road that was perpendicular. So I ducked behind a car, and he's sitting there like gripped onto the stop sign, and is just calling out for us as we're hiding behind the car. And so obviously the Polizei were like, okay, he's saying something in that direction. So they swept in behind the car, got us. And at that point, like when I saw them starting to move, I was like, okay, they know relatively what our position is. I just stood up, like, hey, hello. And they're like, Ausweis, and I'm like, yeah, about that. But yeah,
Yeah,
you also you
yeah.
mentioned you mentioned table tennis. If I'm ever in Fairbanks ever again, we need to go to the Wood Center and play some table tennis.
Well, I'm a little out of practice, but I would enjoy it very, very much. You can see I'm setting the table to make sure if he beats me, I have an excuse. But yeah, I was really good in my younger years, and I really enjoyed playing. I would play, practice for hours and hours and hours, and I ended up going up against the number one amateur in Germany at military. But military service there, it's you have to join once you turn the age of 18, 19, you have to join. But anyways, this young guy, I thought I was good. Oh my God, could he play tennis? I would hit that ball. I mean, I would think the ball would would flatten out on the other side of the table. I hit it so hard, and he just brought it back like almost like he was yawning. I was like, oh my! And he bring it back at twice the speed. And I'm like, this guy. And I was known my reputation, and as you play table tennis, you probably relate to this. I was called a cutter. That was my nickname, the cutter, because I had a vicious cut. I had such a vicious backspin. You had to work hard to make sure it didn't come back to me before you could get to it. And so I just love playing the games. You hit another passion. You guys are hitting my passions today. What's up with this? I hadn't this much
Well, I
fun
mean,
talking about things in a long time.
We just talk about stuff. That's the great thing about our show. There's no pressure. There's no weird political agenda. We just honestly just sit and talk about stuff because sometimes people just need to talk about stuff.
Amen.
although I did kind of go on a political rant the last time we recorded with, yeah. No, it was the time before that.
It was a Socratic. We all had agreements to disagree.
Well,
That's
no,
just,
no,
it's
no. Like,
okay.
Yeah.
I actually recording is the
I'm getting a little notice here too.
yeah. It says that you started recording, Amber.
Oh no, my dog's nose hit the keyboard button.
Oh no,
I apologize.
dude, this will be the behind the scenes footage. Oh, recording has stopped.
Yeah, I just
Subscribe to our Patreon for exclusive content. Okay, you'll get that clip, and nobody else will have it except for all the other people who paid for it.
On the plus side, I figured out how to record through Teams again.
Thanks, your dog. Your dog has helped out a lot. Thank you, dog.
She has. She is a big beautiful ball of joy. I have never had a Basset Hound. I should have done some more research because I did not realize how stubborn they were before I got a Basset Hound.
Yeah,
She's
my
not a
son Dave-
challenge.
I'm gonna say,
But-
my son Dave, I got him one for a graduation when he graduated from college. That was his
Yeah.
graduation present, a Basset Hound puppy, and he loved her.
Oh yeah. No, she's absolutely precious, but she gets into everything. And then she'll look at me like I didn't do anything. And it's like, Lola, I think you took my shoe. And then you go and you'll see it in her bed because it's always in her same hiding spots. But then she'll look at you like, I didn't take your shoe. Like, it was the Chihuahua. Like, and it's like the Chihuahua couldn't even fit that in his mouth. Like,
Yeah, I love it when they get the little halo over their heads. It's just and their little puppy eyes. Yeah, I know.
exactly.
They're
Because
awesome.
Basset Hounds are already droopy, and so when they start to give you like the innocent look, like their eyes really start to droop, like the puppy eyes, like I'm just so cute. Look at me. And it's like you're not cute. You're a little ball of crap, is what you are. But I love you.
Man, we had one. Me and my late partner had a Basset Hound named Boswick, and that dog, if it got out, it would put its nose to the ground and just go. It would go on an olfactory adventure and just kind of wherever its nose took it. And then when you find him, he gives you this look like, "Where have you been?" Like, I've been doing all of this important work, and you guys are just nowhere. What is wrong with you?
And they're creatures of habit because my puppy Charlie, she was born and raised here in Alaska, so it's 40 below, but she'll jump into the high snow to leave her scent, and then back out onto where the tire tracks are at. We have a little bit more feasibility in being able to stay erect, at least for me, anyways, to stay up and stand up. But they just become such creatures of habit, and she seems so unfazed because she's an Alaskan dog. She just seems so unfazed by the cold. You know, I was once in a place called Guam, and I remember getting cold. I was there for the worst cold front ever. It got down to 67. I mean, it was so cold because you get so used to that warm temperature. Well, just the opposite has happened with here in Fairbanks. Now it becomes like 30, 25, 30 below in the middle of the winter. It's like, walk in the park. It's got to get to 40 or more before I even feel the need to really overdress. I got electric gloves. I got an electric hat. I got all the, I've got all the warmth that you can put together on the battery, and then carrying that all with me as I go around. But my kids love it here too. My kids, they came up here in the Air Force. I was stationed up on Elmendorf for the longest time, and they just they never skied before, so they started learning how to cross country skiing, downhill skiing. They just fell in love with all the outdoor sports. They just my my son James was not only on a ski team, but he was also on the swim team, and the kids would kind of jointly go together with the different teams because they stay in shape, and of course they had that social network going on. But he would talk about how they would use like animal fur to put in the groin area so they can go skiing safely at 35 below zero. You don't think about those things unless you're here. It just changes. So these military brats have learned a lot of different secrets to surviving the elements or wherever they're at. So it's just a lot of fun to I just wanted to kind of bring it full circle back there with the kids, living up here in Alaska and enjoying the different. I mean, they did all my kids ended up doing the cross country. We would go out as a family. On my back deck in Anchorage, it just emptied out into a park, and that they also groomed all the ski trails. So we just go out in a family. Dave and I, my middle son, Dave and I, we'd always go out for Thanksgiving because we wanted to make sure we were so hungry that when we got home we could feast on that much more food. So we'd go out for like about a 2-hour ski trip and then come on back because we go do the whole park and the whole circle. Of course, we run into an occasional moose, and we gave them all the respect in the world. But with that said, we had a lot of fun. And then, boy, we come home and gosh, we would eat. We would eat like there was no tomorrow. Just it's like it was worthwhile. It's like, hey, we got a good exercise in, we got a good workout. We can now have no feeling bad about overeating. We're trying to make up for lost time, for lost energy. So it's a beautiful place. If you ever get a chance to come up here to Fairbanks and there, Amber, I think, have you been to Fairbanks?
I don't know if I got to Fairbanks. I
You would
know that
know.
I did get to Alaska, but I don't think
Okay.
that I got to Fairbanks.
Yeah, especially if you come up in the winter. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful place.
No,
It's
I
hard
did
to
not
ski
I
up
did
here.
not have the privilege in coming up in the winter. That was the one thing. I still wanna see all of the snow. See, so my climate now, given I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, we lived in Mobile, Alabama for a while, then we lived in Germany, okay? So I was in Germany for about 6 years. Then we went back to Mobile, Alabama. Now that's just a different type of humid heat.
Oh yeah,
Not
I
quite
know.
like Georgia, not it's different. Mobile is just different. The way that I always described it to people, it almost feels like Satan's breathing down your neck as you're slowly gasping for air, but
Oh
yet it
yeah.
feels like you're drowning because it's humid. So
Yeah, that's we had the same thing in Arkansas.
Uh-huh.
But when I was in leadership school down in Louisiana, Barksdale Air Force Base,
Mhm.
I felt like when we were in formation in the morning, and that's when it's cool.
Oh,
I
yeah.
felt like I was melting into the asphalt.
Oh, yeah.
It just felt like my shoes were just like, and that's in the nicer part of the day. And it's just, oh my God. And then the guys and gals from Michigan, places like that would come down to Barksdale for their leadership school, their shirts, their uniforms would be sopping wet in the morning in formation. Never,
Oh,
not,
man.
that's before they did anything. So I can relate, Amber. Being
Oh,
a
yeah.
military guy for so many years, I moved around. I was born in Georgia, by the way.
Okay.
Savannah, yeah, Savannah, Georgia. That's where my dad was stationed. There was an Air Force base there many,
I
many
got
moons ago.
Yeah, I taught on that Air Force base. I've taught on
Oh,
every single base in Georgia, so I was teaching with the VBOC down here too before I stepped down from my position with the VBOC, just in general.
right. Very
But
good.
huh?
I said, very good. Yeah. So I had that Georgia connection. That it's a brief one, but I had that Georgia connection.
Yep. And so right now I kind of got displaced after my divorce. I don't have a lot of friends or family here or connections here in Georgia, but it'll be all right. I'll get back home eventually. We always do. So just
Well,
look
I
at my
think I
mom
heard
and
you.
tell her, "Mom, I'm coming. Just get ready."
I heard in one of your last broadcasts that I listened to, and I used to say this to my troops all the time: home is where you hang your hat.
Yeah.
That's home. And so they used to be like, "Oh, I feel guilty about taking the Alaska Permanent Fund dividend." I said, first of all, you're defending your country. Second off, this is where you live. This is
Yeah.
where your home is. So for the next 4 years, whatever it is you're here for, don't feel guilty about taking the permanent fund dividend. You're an Alaskan for the next 4 years, at least. So I agree with him. I don't know if you remember saying that, but I remember hearing it when you said it on one of your former broadcasts, and I was like, home run there. I mean, I can relate to that wholeheartedly.
Oh, yeah. Certain things I can't help it. I just start talking and the military comes out. I have actually learned that civilians look at you funny when you say it's like putting a Band-Aid on an amputation. They don't like that one that much.
Yeah,
Rub
or
some
tank.
dirt in it and come
Yeah,
on. They don't like that one
yeah,
either.
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, and see, that's the thing. You talk about all the stuff that military brats get up to. When I was in Japan, I was in Cub Scouts, and guess who ran most of the Cub Scout stuff? Army guys. So yeah, I mean, it was still very like fun, little kid stuff because it's Cub Scouts, but they didn't really hold back on like I mean, like we'd go spend a week up at like Tama Hill in Japan, okay? And I would get home, I would have like flecks of mud all over my body, and I'm sitting there cleaning myself off, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, man, this feels so weird being in an actual building right now and not sleeping in a tent, like. It's just, it's one of those things like you end up getting conditioned to, and you talk about the teachers that help facilitate the transition with your kids. That was the beauty of it is as much as I hated being away from my family, and that's something that I'm not going to get into here because that ended up causing psychological issues later on. But
No,
despite all of that, it became so much easier for me to make connections with people and go through frequent changes. I moved around Texas for like 20 years after getting back from Fairbanks, and before that it was Japan, Hawaii, Germany, you know, and and
Yeah.
after Japan, it was so much easier because I was at John O'Arn Elementary School in Japan, somewhere in or around Tokyo. I don't know. That's like over 30 years ago at this point. But but yeah, they had a culture class where you would literally like you'd go in, and I forgot the guy's name, Mr. Nakamoto, I think was his name. I don't know. But anyway, it would teach you about Japanese culture, and like you would go out into the local economy, and your parents are just completely flabbergasted because you're speaking Japanese with the people out there. You know what to do. You know why things are happening the way that they are. You know when to bow. You know when to, you know, and
very good.
yeah, it's just it's an amazing experience despite the isolation from the nuclear family.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. And it's important, to have those experiences and things and to learn, different cultures and things around you just so you can get along in the world. I've seen a lot more hate these days
mm,
everywhere. I don't like it. I see a lot more hate than when I used to grow up, because when I used to grow up, patriotism, it was a lot different than what I'm seeing now. I'm not seeing the patriotism. And there's I don't know. You have to have those experience to respect the cultures, but on the flip side of things, don't hate what you don't know just because you don't understand it, you know?
yeah, yeah. Amen to that. Amen to that. And with that, we teach our kids as much as possible as we've been kind of covering here today. We do our very best to make sure they respect their elders, respect the
Yeah.
culture that they're a part of for the moment, because it does change from country to country, from state to state. The culture changed from Anchorage to Fairbanks. I mean, that's a
Oh, yeah.
360-mile one-way trip difference. I mean, it's a different culture up here in Fairbanks compared to Anchorage, but the
Well, I mean,
kids
it's
are
it's
much more
individual
resilient.
state histories too,
Yeah.
you know?
I just find the kids to be more resilient, and that's what I love about my military career. Where my kids getting. I thought it was an opportunity for them. I
You
understood the change dynamics. I understood the moving from one place to another. In the book that I just finished, by the way, my book here, I'm pretty proud of. One of the stories I talk about was James. was at an elementary school in Providence, Rhode Island. Because when I went from Andrews, I had to get a place for us to live in Germany before I could bring my family over. So
Yeah.
what do I do with my where do I deposit my family for this, amount of time? So anyways, I was going to a small army post, billets were almost non-existent. And so I said, okay, here's what I'll do. We'll have you stay with relatives. And they stayed with their Auntie Kathy. But James went to school for 2 whole months in Providence. Last day, it's an ice cream social at the cafeteria table. And guess what? Some of the kids were acting up and they don't get the ice cream. So as I write in the book, just to put it in a short of note here, he cried. He cried his little heart out. Mom was coming to pick him up after lunch because they were going to be leaving the next morning and she wanted to get a head start on getting them ready for the flight over to Germany. Well, she gets there, and James is still in the cafeteria. Now the cafeteria is just the staff because they knew mom was on her way to pick him up. And he was still teary-eyed, and she's like, "What's the matter? Why are you so upset? You're leaving?" He goes, "I didn't get my ice cream." He goes, "Mom, I was good, and I should have got that ice cream. And now we're leaving, and I'll never get my ice cream." And when you're a little tyke in, the first grade or something like that, you're just a little tyke. I mean, that was important to him. That was
Oh,
crushing
yeah.
because he knew he was never going to be coming back to that school, more than likely never coming back to that school. The principal overheard him talking to mom, and I got with the staff, and the staff said, "Yeah, of all the kids, James was really good." So she went out and got them all a big bowl of ice cream with all the fixings, and she sat down with mom and James, and they just had a great time talking about his future going to be like in Germany. Again, another moment where, and of course, this wasn't a DoD, this was just a traditional public school, but another moment where a principal or a teacher can really make a huge positive impact on the
Yeah.
kids. And so I put that story into the book too, as part of the transition. And he was really aware that he wasn't going to have a second chance for that ice cream. He wasn't going to be at that lunch table anymore because he was now going to another country to go to school. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
it was pretty wild. So anyways, even coming up here to Alaska, James was supposed to go to a middle school that had a really poor reputation. He couldn't go to the one that was called Central ABC, the military one, because we lived off post. So they were like, or off base. They were like, well, you could sign up for housing. This is somebody who I met there, and I go, what happens when I sign up for military housing? They go, well, now you can say you're going to be moving into military housing, and therefore, because we're actually getting ready to buy a house, therefore you can get your son to that. So I would have to drive him in every day to school, but it was worth it because it was a school that had a lot of other military family kids there, and he could relate to them a whole lot better. And the school had just an incredible reputation for listening to the teachers, listening to the people in leadership roles, and not having where people were goofing off and just finding not having that same emphasis on the academics as we were finding in a school that had a much more close relationship with the military kids. I'm not saying they were better kids. I'm just saying when it came to understanding discipline, to follow the sage advice, they
Oh,
could
yeah.
they were better adapt for that.
Oh, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
but of course I'm biased because my kids were all military brats.
Well, we also had different training because, for instance, I remember right before we went to Germany 19 summer 1996, might have been 1997, and we stopped in Virginia probably for about a week, and, like, when we were, like, at DC and everything else because of things that were going on, we were in between, like, DEFCON yellow, like, that sort of thing. And so we had that briefing to begin with. Well, this is what happens. And then I remember having to read the pamphlets. Well, this is how you prepare to leave if you have to leave in a 24-hour notice, that sort of
Right,
thing.
right. Yeah, I
And
remember
so,
those type of briefings. Yeah, you
oh,
betcha.
yeah. And so, as a family unit, you have to prepare for all of those things. And so,
Oh,
yeah,
amen.
when it comes to discipline in a bomb shelter, because like I said, we used to have like the bomb things where we would sometimes have to like huddle in tornado drills where we would have to put like our hands over our head, those sorts of
Mhm.
things. Yeah, we were prepared for that because that was constant from when we were little. It's
Yeah,
like this is nothing new to us, sort of thing. Um,
yeah. Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
point. I kind of forgot about that. But yeah, I used to tell
Oh
my
yeah.
wife, it's like if the balloon goes up and they move me to, towards, we were in southern Germany. They started moving me towards, without much notice, towards northern Germany. Hun, you're on your own. And here's and then going over all the instructions that have been passed down and going over it again and making sure that it's like, here's where you need to get to. Get the kids there. Don't worry about, just get a suitcase and get the hell out of Dodge because things are about to get hot. And
Exactly.
a lot of other kids are not probably getting that type of training because there's they take for granted almost in the United States as a whole of overall having safe communities, even though there are places that are becoming. It just got me scratching my head as violence seems to be almost accepted. I don't understand it.
I know that the last time, so we came back from Germany because I went back to Graf Vilsek and I was there from like 2015 to 2019. Believe it or not, I actually felt safer there in Germany than I felt when we were over there pre, post, and during 9/11. Like, I felt a lot
Hmm.
safer over there,
Okay.
just from the things and everything, just in traveling. Now, yeah, there are certain areas that I still avoid just because they're areas that I know to avoid. I won't get into all of that, especially certain areas in the Czech Republic. We just avoid those areas.
Right. Right.
But that being said, you know, you I don't know, you learn the area, but I did. I felt safer over there than I do on some streets in America. Because seriously, here, even in the country, I'll lock my door. And certain in our like little town where we were in Grafenwehr,
Whoa.
I would never need to feel the need to lock my door, you know? So it really, I guess, just depends on where you are in the world.
Yeah. Amen. But again, our kids, and as you experienced firsthand as a military brat yourself, I mean, the military brats are much more efficient, maybe in
Ignore
a
the dogs,
almost
I
forced way with
apologize.
change. I mean, they understand change.
Oh, yeah. Well, we understand change because it's constant change. I mean, we're called dandelions, okay? Now, I wanna rebrand dandelions as war flowers. I think I can do it. I think that could be another cool thing that we can rebrand the military brat as, because as Jesse and as we've all discussed, there's not a lot out there for military brats. And so one thing I tell people, did you know we have a month? Even Jesse was shocked. He's like, "We have a month? Since when? Like, we've never heard that we have a month." Like, so
I didn't know there was a month either. I mean, until just this second, I never had heard that. We're-
exactly. There is a military brat or month.
I'm going to
So
have to look that up for my
I
next
think
book.
it's
I'll have to work that in there.
Yeah, I think it's in October. I think the month of October is the month of the military child.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Military brat month.
So, yeah, we need to bring more awareness to things like that. So maybe things can actually be done so people will be like, "Hey, yeah, I know about the month of the military child," that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well,
Because that's pretty
I'm
bad if you
so
get a
glad when
100
you
of us in
started
a
this
room, we're
up.
like, "What?"
Yeah, when you started this up, I was like, "Wow, this is great," and I'm hoping it catches fire because I really do think there's our our culture that we all have been surrounded by, and our upbringing. I mean, I understand, a lot of what the military folks go through,
Yeah.
and I mean, I get teary eyed when we lose, like we lost a couple of those beautiful guard people over there here recently in Syria. You think about their families. You think about how hard it is on those families. And when we lost an AWACS aircraft when I was at Elmendorf, and that next day, 53 kids didn't have lost one of their parents. It was
Yeah.
tough. Crashed
Oh,
right at
yeah.
the end of the runway in Elmendorf. It was I remember one of my troops came in, and I mean, the door that opened up from outside my office went right to the hard stand out there next to the flight line. And he's like, "Sergeant McDermott, we just had an aircraft go down." And I said, "We don't play with that. We don't even joke about something like that." He goes, "I'm
No.
not joking, sir." And it was a tough day. So, my heart goes out. I mean, it's a tough life being a military brat, but at the same time, the kid there's I want to spend more time on when I'm writing my books. I try to spend more time on looking at what was really great about it and being around it and watching my kids
Absolutely.
thrive and do so well. But yeah, I was going a lot too. And and I heard Jesse talk a little bit about it. It's tough on the kids, and
Yeah.
it's just what we have to do. It's just part of our lives. What we signed up for. Isn't that what we always used to hear in the military? It's what you signed up for. And if we wanted you to have a wife and kids, we would have issued you one.
No,
I
absolutely.
I've heard that word once.
I've heard that one. Oh, I'm sorry, Jesse.
No. I was going to say, going back to Dodd schools, like they definitely had a lot of. I mean, it's kind of tough to be there to outreach to kids that are struggling. Okay, but they did a fair bit of good with me. They didn't find out why I was actually struggling the way that I was, and it's because I lost my grandmother shortly before uprooting and moving to Germany. And I didn't even really realize why I was acting out either at the time, but hindsight 2020. But I still got to see the school psychologists, had all kinds of other support staff, like Mrs. Levins was always there for me. There was the alcohol and substance abuse people, which I never really abused alcohol or substances much. But anyway, that was supposed to be a joke. Terrible. And anyhow, it was
Remind me to tell you my famous last words in a trailer park later.
Oh God.
Okay, we have all been there as a teenager at some point.
That guy Gutfeld, he sometimes will tell a joke and he'll stop and he'll look at the people in the stands and go up to the audience and go, that was a joke. And it's like, oh, then people start to chuckle. It's like, oh, okay, well, we missed it.
I've learned to throw air quotes in the words allegedly, hypothetically, and theoretically. Like those are
It's like that reminds me of back in the day on Tech TV or G4 or whatever you want to call it. They made this joke about, well, Adam Sessler makes this joke about, yeah, just like when Suge Knight ordered the assassination of the Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac. And he's like, oh crap, allegedly, please don't hurt me.
Kind of like when I'm talking to the IRS, I use a little humor, but there's a little seriousness to it. I used to do the same thing with my students. I'd talk about the IRS and I'd look up to the ceiling and they go, but I love the work they do, and then move on.
I don't know. I had a friend actually send me a picture of like the seafood plate, and it was like some of the most beautiful food. And then after he sent me that picture, like all of the reels and stuff I started seeing that day were like, this is how you make like this cheesy crab toast. And I sent one to like Jesse and like Alex, and Jesse and Alex is like, why are you sending me this? Like, this is like, looks so good. I'm just like, it just. So yeah, that I do believe they're watching you. I don't think it's just you. Just don't.
Okay.
The advice that I have to give to everybody: don't end up that person on the side of the road with the tinfoil hat, because I've met a lot of those people too.
Yeah.
Live your life. It's okay.
Were you in Wiesbaden? Did I hear you say that you were in Wiesbaden area?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. All right. Yeah. But I took my kids to a restaurant up there when we were visiting during Christmas at one of their Christmas fairs.
Okay.
And I loved it up there. And then we had a detachment up there too. When I was in the military, I'd go back and forth and do inspections, things of that nature. But I loved it up there. One time we stopped at a restaurant, and the waiter started to cut the sausage for my children while we were at the table. I'm like, these are some of the nicest people I've ever run into. But I love Wiesbaden. I love being up there at Christmas time. It was beautiful up there.
When I was 10, okay, now given I was doing really, really good. Now I love seafood. I was not really big at the time into freshwater fish. That's an acquired taste that I've developed as I've gotten older. But I was going to try their fresh river trout. Okay, so I ordered from this restaurant the fresh river trout. Well, in Germany, they didn't cut the head off. So whenever they like brought it out, they bring out the whole fish. It's got its like head, it's got the eye and everything looking at me. And so I'm just not looking at the fish because I was doing great. Okay, I was eating the fish. I'm like, this tastes great. I was putting the lemon on it. Great food. Then my sister, okay, in this German restaurant has to look at me and says, well, Amber, don't forget to suck on the eye. When she said that, I looked at that fish looking at me, and I just almost lost everything because she just had to do it. It was the one thing she had to do. But yeah,
That's
food preparation's definitely different where you go.
Yeah.
suck on the eyes. That's so Cajun. That is like one of the most Creole sounding. My great grandmother, like we went to go. I forget where it was. But we're at this restaurant. And she orders the crawfish, and it's like this mound of just crawfish carcasses all piled up.
We
And
suck on the heads of crawfish down here.
exactly, she's sitting there sucking on the head, and my cousin's like, "Oh, she's so gross. Why does she do that?" And she's just sitting there. She doesn't even care. She's like, "Yeah, whatever." She's just sucking on the crawfish head.
The big
Yeah.
rice bugs in places like the Philippines, they'll just have a bag of them and bite the head off right there as they're sitting on a public bus and suck all the rice out because the flavors of the acids of the stomach really make that rice taste really good.
Yeah.
And so yeah, from one place to the next, it's we've the three of us, and then those who are listening to the podcast, by many of them can relate to some of our experiences that we indulged in. Now, Jesse, table tennis. I mean, that's all I'm going to have on my mind until we meet.
Man, okay, so I used to go to the Wood Center. They had, I don't know if they still have the arcade area over there where they had the pool tables and everything. But I started going there because there was this game, Dance Dance Revolution, that they had right there in the corner right by where the table tennis setup was. And, just kind of hanging out in between sets on Dance Dance Revolution because you could really work up a terrible sweat. So I would be sitting off to the side watching people play table tennis, and that's how I got started playing table tennis there. And I'm not great at table tennis. I'm pretty terrible. And one of my buddies was actually ranked in the top 100 for the entire city of Cleveland before he came to Alaska to go to school. And he's a really great guy. He was like 4'9", okay, and I God bless him. I mean, he just completely made me look like a fool every time I played table tennis with him. And also got into playing pool there as well. I asked this one kid, how'd you get so good at pool? And he's like, you ever been to Barrow, Alaska? And I'm like, no. He's like, yeah. So for like 6 months out of the year, there's nothing to do but play pool. So
Yeah. Yeah, Barrow. They got a high school football team there now, and it's actually went national as far as the kids from on top of the earth. I mean, literally on top of the earth. Coming to Fairbanks to them is coming to the big city. We're a town of 35,000, but they consider that to be the big city.
yeah, that's the great thing about it, though. Like, I don't know, like, and like kids at the university, like the university looks more like suburban, less rural than what everybody else that's not just going to school in Fairbanks, what they're used to. And like, I'm sitting there in the Fred Meyer parking lot, and I'm like looking around, and I'm like I tell one of them like, look all around you out here. Okay, aside from the road on this side, it's nothing but dense trees all the way around. Like, can you imagine having to traverse this environment to explore, to settle here? Never mind the fact that it should be completely terrifying to you that you are literally in the middle of a densely wooded area that is so remote. Like, a lot of that gets taken for granted. And like, we had one year we had ice fog. It was like -65, and we had the ice fog, and my friend Vanessa and her husband, who is the short guy that used to own me in table tennis, I was roommating with them at the time, and I was like, "Where are you guys going?" They're like, "We're going to the bus, and we're gonna go catch the bus to the university." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not even gonna try to go to class today." And Vanessa's like, "Look, I've been here my entire life. I know what I'm doing, and we're gonna go catch the bus." And they come back 15 minutes later. She's dragging Tim through the doorway, and he's blue in the face because he didn't wear a mask. He didn't wear a ski mask outside, and the ice crystals hit his lungs, and he couldn't breathe.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah,
man.
like
Yeah. That's what it's like when it gets really cold. Yeah. And I wear my baklava all the time. So I have a face shield over my mouth and nose. But even this morning at 40 below, I mean, otherwise, you take that in and try to breathe that. Oh my God, it feels like your lungs are being crystallized. But I love the ice fog as far as beauty goes. Especially if you get a little light around it. Oh, it's so pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we actually when the ice fog hit, it was like that for a few days, and we listened to the audio drama The Mist by Stephen King while it was you couldn't see
That's
across the street
interesting.
outside.
Uh, I don't think I've read that book. I've read a couple of his books. That one doesn't ring a bell.
Oh,
Anyways, he's a
Jim.
good writer.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of writing and coming up, because I think we're coming up still on about an hour and a half now.
Oh,
But with that being said, what's next for you, Jim? What do you have another collection coming out, or are you going on tour anytime soon? What's the next plans for Jimmy Irish and little Jimmy's Merry Christmas? Christmas. I can't talk. Christmas
uh,
mischief.
yeah. Well, I actually, we had a book one and book two, and I have the little Brian's military brats best Christmas ever. But right now, I got two more in the process of publishing. I got the illustration. It's called the raspberry water lemonade stand, and it's raspberry water versus lemonade stand, but it's a entrepreneurship. It's everything from it's basically writing a feasibility study, but it's a bunch of kids with their dads, with their mom, putting together what it takes to put together even the raspberry water stand and the amount of work they have to put in. Their neighbor, Sophia, put in a lemonade stand the day before. And that's how they get the idea. Ideas are often success, often blooms off of those ideas. And they're like, we could do mom's raspberry lemon water. And so that's the one I got in right now. I just got done with all the illustrations and the front cover and the back of the book, all as far as the text goes, all being approved. So now that one's just shortly should be out there to the world. But then I have another one about Suzanne's hiking adventures, and Suzanne went hiking and found three brothers. So Suzanne, her mom was a single mom, she went hiking and her mom met this single dad who was hiking with his kids. And just to make the whole story kind of short and all that, in the end, Suzanne ends up with three new brothers and a new dad, and it's a great story. They went to a place called Flat Top Mountain, which is a real mountain in Anchorage, Alaska, based on a real true story again, with a lot of fiction involved, but at the same time a lot of actual facts. Because that's how I met my wife, was going hiking on that mountain, and met little Suzanne, who became my stepdaughter, and then her being and them coming into, at the time I was finishing up my Air Force career, them coming into that military environment. I remember Janet grabbing my hand. We were up on the Air Force Base there in Anchorage, and she grabbed my hand. I was in my battle dress uniform. She grabbed my hand. I was a master sergeant at the time in the United States Air Force, and so I was a leader. And I pulled my hand away, and she's like, "What are you doing? Why won't you hold my hand?" I said, "Darling, we're on an Air Force base." She goes, "Well, what does that mean?" I said, "Well, that type of affection is frowned upon when you're in uniform, to be holding hands." I said, she goes, "It's a free country." I go, "Honey, we defend freedom, but we don't practice it inside the gate." She's like, "This needs to change." I said, "Well, good luck with that, hon. Let me know how it works out for you."
No, they have an entire handbook. I don't know if you've ever read. I've read the Army Spouse Handbook. I know that there's an Air Force Spouse Handbook, but the whole entire thing, you're supposed to walk approximately on their right side, and it gives you. It's like,
Crazy.
why?
It's crazy. And especially when, she comes into the military, near the end of my military career, she was not going to buy in. I am not changing who I am. And if you don't want to hold my hand, then, you just be that way. So she had a little attitude for a little bit. She got a little being, but then she started talking to other military wives because she was getting to know them. And they're like, "No, no, no, Janet, that's the way it's supposed to be." He wasn't being insulting. He was just like, my God, if he was caught holding hands, a master sergeant, in his battle dress uniform, the men
Oh
would have
yeah.
lost respect for him, or they would have had a lot of fun on his behalf because of, more than
Or
likely.
your next leave request would have been denied. I mean, there's a lot of different things that could have happened
Yeah.
down that chain. So, but
So again,
Jim,
the
no.
culture, as Jesse was talking early on, the cultures within the environment, for our rugrats and military brats to grow up in, it's
Yeah.
and spouses, it can be a real change, and can be really a little bit of a challenge to get used to that particular environment. But at the same time, that's what they signed up for. It's kind of what my bosses used to say to me. That's what you signed up for, Sergeant Mac.
I'm not supposed to laugh, but still sometimes when I pass a unit and I all see them, and no lie, they will be on their hands and knees, and why they're all cutting the grass with the safety scissors. You don't know what they did, but you know
Yeah.
somebody did something.
Somebody screwed up. Yeah.
But I snicker, and I know that I shouldn't snicker, but I snicker because it's just like y'all done messed up. It's just like I don't know what you did, but you did something.
Now, Jesse, are you going to have to edit half of this show because I think we had some strong takes on a lot of things.
Yeah, I totally heavily edit everything that we do, and I never leave in
He
any.
really doesn't.
I never leave in any bloopers. I may take out some of the more blue comments, but other than that, it's just a nice little off the cuff romp. And once I get through chopping out all of the long pauses and ums, that's like a good 4 or 5 minutes right there.
Amen.
Well, with all
And like
of that
90%
being
of that is
said,
me. So
Well, I had a lot of fun with the two of you chatting with you, so I really enjoyed the invitation.
yes,
And
and
maybe
come back
someday I'll come on
anytime.
and I could do a reading of one of my books. I'd love to do something like that, especially my Christmas books.
Yes.
I would love to do, maybe just be a guest for 10 minutes and just do a reading of one of my short books and share the story for free and maybe even give a little backstory on how I came up with some of the stories.
So I actually have an idea about that, if you'll bear with me.
Yes, ma'am.
So, but with all of that being said, we do look forward to seeing all of your books. I do want to record you reading one of your children's stories if you would like for Christmas. That was going to be a big reveal, but you kind of you let the cat out of the bag too soon there, Jim.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Edit, Jesse, edit.
Yeah, edit,
yes,
Jesse.
yes, snip, snip.
But
No,
thank you so much, and you are welcome to come back on the show absolutely anytime, Jim. Absolutely.
You guys were a pleasure to chat with.
Oh yeah. Like I said, sometimes connection's important, and that's what it's all about. That's what our network that we're building's about. Because ultimately what I'm trying to do with the network, I want to network all of our businesses together, because there are certain pieces where the VA and where even the GI Bill fall short. Now, given it is my strong opinion, it is not the opinion of the government, but it is my strong opinion for one, with, for instance, the $400 death benefit. That was set during the Geneva Convention. $400 won't even buy you a pine box.
Thank you.
They need to reevaluate things like that. We want to supplement things like that, where the VA and where the government benefits fall short. Because, for instance, even with the GI Bill, why should you have to choose only one child that goes to college? When you have 4 or 5 children, it's like, oh, you can go to college because you're my oldest. Well, I'm sorry, we can't quite afford X, Y, and Z.
Right.
That puts the family behind. The whole entire family serves. You shouldn't have to pick and choose. And so, yes, certain things like that we're looking into supplementing. Certain things like with, for instance, healthcare. The healthcare and the benefits completely cut at age 23. A lot of kids, they're just getting into college. They don't have the jobs. They don't have the X, Y, and Z. Now, TRICARE, they just immediately cut them off. They can't get access to anything. And that leaves so many without. And so we want to supplement things like that. And so we're looking into things and options and using the podcast to fundraise for all of it. So thank you so much for coming to join
and
us.
having those good connections too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. That really does a great job. You get that guy from Georgia, right? Collins, who's in charge of the VA.
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, you should be using your Georgia charm on him.
Well, it's kind of my South Carolina, Alabama charm.
Oh, okay.
Slash mixture of German. You've worked with me. I can be super, super friendly and I can schmooze with the best of them. But then on the flip side of things, you've also seen what happens when you get on my bad side. So,
and
I've
never been there. I've only witnessed it. I will never go there.
I don't know. I've been told I can go medieval in business. And it's like, what does that even mean? And they're like, I don't know, Amber, but you just go medieval. Okay.
You're a good person, and I enjoy having you as a friend. And Jesse, my new friend.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
It's always great to meet a new friend, and
Absolutely.
been doing a lot of that. Been stretching some old social muscles, learning a new country, having recently moved to Canada. So
Yep.
Yeah.
and that's the thing is it's been great starting this podcast because I get to talk to all these, with people from high school and things like that, and and it's like Alex Bagwell said here a while back, it's better than therapy. It really is, you know.
I'll send this particular pod broadcast to some of my friends out there, and hopefully it'll help generate even more interest.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Every little bit helps. But thank you once again so much, Jim. And thank you everybody for listening. Jesse is going to do some edits. And yeah, this episode, it'll drop on Saturday. But yeah, good night, everybody.
All right. God bless. I'll see you later.
Good night.
Yep.